Simple interest. Simple interest isn't commonly used in business, however we're going to use it as a starting point. The simple interest form is I equals PRT, where I is your interest earned, P is the principal or the starting amount, R is the interest rate. Typically this is an annual interest rate. And we have to write it as a decimal. So instead of a 7 for 7%, we would use 0.07. T is the time in units matching the interest rate. So if for some reason the interest rate was not annual, you would need to use time to match it. But if it is annual, then time needs to be an annual. So let's practice. Determine the simple interest. And again, we've got I equals PRT. So if we have a principal of $465, interest rate of 2.75%, and since it doesn't indicate otherwise, this is an annual interest rate, and time of 3 years. Our interest rate of 2.75%, if we change that to a decimal, moving it over, that gives us 0.0275, and again I like to have the leading zero in there. So $465 times 0.0275 times the time in years, and since this is an annual rate, we're going to do it per year, number of years, and multiplying that all out, I get that that's $38.36. Let's try another one. Principal is $1,350.75. Interest rate is 7.5%. Again, I'm going to need to change that to decimal, so I get 0.075. And T equals 3 months. This is an annual rate. This is not in years. So we need to change the T into years. And 3 months is a fourth of a year, or 0.25 years. Now when we put this all together, 1,350.75 times 7.5% times a quarter of a year, and that gives me an impossible number. I believe I have an error in mine. So let's recalculate this. 1350.75 times 0.075 times 0.25 equals $25.33. I had $2,500 on my paper, and I knew that wasn't right, because there's no way you could make $2,500 in 3 months, or I would be doing it. Let's see. Last one. P equals $41,864. The rate is 0.0375% per day. This is an ugly number, and it's going to get even uglier because we need to turn that into a decimal. So it's going to be 0.000375. Now, since this rate is in days, it's okay that our time is in days. So we'll multiply that by 60 and multiply it by the 41,000. And when we multiply all of these numbers together, we get $941.94. Alright, how much money must be invested at 2% annual simple interest for 3 years to earn $300 in interest? We're going to be using the same I equals PRT. It's just that we're not going to know the principal rate and time on these. We're going to have something else missing. So in this case, how much must be invested at 2%? That's the R. For 3 years, that's the T. To earn $300. So that's our interest. Now if we plug these values in there, to our formula, we get $300 equals P times 3 times 0.02. I shouldn't do it that way. I don't want to confuse you. Let's go back and do P times R, which is 0.02, times 3. When we multiply this out, we get 300 equals 0.06 P. Divide both sides by 0.06. And P is 300 divided by 0.06, which gives us P is $5,000. I would recommend that you pause the video either before or after I do a problem, and make sure you can get your calculator to come up with the same numbers. Alright, if $800 is invested at 4%, let's change my ink color a little bit here so we can keep these straight. So if 800 is invested, that means that's your principal. 4%, that's going to be your rate. How long until interest will be 128? How long means we don't know what the time will be. So let's set this up. We get 128 equals 800 times 0.04 times time. In other words, 128 equals 0.04 times 800 is 32. And then if we divide both sides by 32, we get that T equals 4 years. So it'll take 4 years to get $128 in interest. Alright, 343.20 was earned when 1,650 was invested for 6.5 years. What was the interest rate? So here we've got our interest, we've got our principal, we've got our time. What we don't have is the interest rate. So we'll just set this in. 343.20 equals 1650 times I times 6.5. That's 343.20 divided by, if we do 1650 times 6.5, we get 10,725. Now if we divide both sides by 10,725, we find that I is 0.032. Now this is the interest rate as a decimal. Again, we've been using it as a percent, so we'll move the decimal over 2 places to get an interest rate of 3.2%. Now, some loans are given for lengths other than a full year or a full month, and to calculate interest on those, we need to know the number of days between two dates on the calendar. Now, we're not going to work on any of these exercises while we to figure out interest, but I figure it's a handy exercise for us to know how to get the difference between